Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm going to talk about the power of the mind tonight, and by the end of tonight I want to either prove to you guys or give you information for you to prove to yourselves that the imagination power of the mind is all creation, and everything that you seek in the outside world is just a symptom, and the inner body and the mind is the cause. And the information that I give you will come from personal experience. So all you'll be hearing from me tonight will be my own personal experience and how I perceived what actually happened. So that's all I can really go by. I can't really go by what anybody else says to me unless it makes sense to me or stirs something up in my mind that explains what's happened to me. So most of my stuff is all, I'm to say a little bit of stuff about me, I'm uneducated as far as the education system's concerned. I went to school, I couldn't concentrate. I always got lack of concentration on my school reports. I could never really, when the teacher would speak like I'm speaking to you now, I couldn't sit in the crowd in the classroom and actually absorb what was going on, because every time we got to a trigger word, it could be Sir Francis Drake sailed the ocean, and then all of a sudden I'd be going, he sailed the ocean, I bet that was lovely with the sunsets and da-da-da-da-da, and all of a sudden the teacher goes, Kai, and I go, what? Where am I? Because I always tended to fade out. Every time we hit trigger words within the classroom, I just faded out. I get exactly the same with reading. So whenever I read a book, I can never get to the end of that sentence without I read it, I can read it out loud, I can speak it, but I can never absorb it, because I just get to a point where my imagination just runs away with me and I can't concentrate. So therefore I come out of school with nothing. So you know, in a way, viewing the world as I view it today at 42 years old, I see that as being the best blessing that I ever had, because it gave me an open mind. Anybody, not anybody, but majority of people can go in school and they can go and really learn, and I say hats off to them. My daughter's a big success with school. But at the same time, you give up an element of your freedom because you're taught a way of life and a way of thinking that is the same as everybody else. And it can be quite limiting, actually, because you're all taught the same. Whereas when you get somebody, what you find in history is that the people who are the most maybe rebellious, they don't make it through school, they usually get kicked out before the end of school, they're actually the ones who go on and make a big business. Even today, you know, most of the people who are in high up places are all people who didn't succeed at school. They were kicked out before the end, or they just didn't make it. They didn't go on to learn any further education. They decided to go with what they wanted and desired, and they made it. And this is, you know, this makes you ask questions. Why? Why does that happen? You know, how come they haven't got the A pluses and the PhDs and everything else, yet they've gone on and they've made it so successful? And when I talk about successful, we're not just talking about money. We could be talking about lifestyle, the information that they get, you know, and everything else. So what I'm going to cover tonight is how the picturing, when we say imagination for me, it's been watered down, the meaning of imagination. It can mean so many different things. People can say, oh, that's just a figment of your imagination, and that would be like destroying what you're saying. Other people could say, oh, well, he or she is a man or woman of imagination, and that could be saying that they've got this great power of their mind, that they can see things, envision things, you know, and actually build them and create reality. And for me personally, the imagination to me is the picturing power of the mind. So we all have imagination. Some people have a more vivid imagination than others. And what happens is everything that you see in your outside world and everything that you create with your hands has to first be imagined. There is nothing in this world that exists that hasn't first been imagined, because if it wasn't imagined within your mind, you would not see it. Now that's one way of looking at imagination, and that's a very powerful thing, because basically what we're doing is saying that, you know, once we meet somebody, anybody that we know, their face is then in our imagination, and that's the only way that we've actually seen them, because we've seen them in front of us now. We know them now, we know that to be a person, and they're this sort of colour hair, and we're, you know, usually dressed like this, whatever. And then that's available to your mind. Now, when you think of that person, whoever it may be, the picture comes up in your mind. So that's really what I want to cover, is the picturing power of the mind. That is what I would consider as being the imagination. The power of the imagination is phenomenal, because not only does, let's talk about magic. Magic is something that many people see as being a Paul Daniels up on a stage. You know, he's tricked the cameras and done something really fast, made a coin disappear, or things like that. If you strip magic down to its pure meaning, all it actually means is creating something out of nothing. So if I got a tree and I chopped that tree and I carved a chair or a bench out of it, I've created magic. I've made something that was not reality. I've pictured it in my mind, and I've now made it a physical reality. So therefore, that shows you the power of the imagination, and how the imagination can actually be brought forward into reality through physical work. But there's something more mysterious about the imagination, and that's that if you can imagine yourself in a situation and give it the tones of reality, that's the power of the universe that you're drawing towards you. So it's from you, the power of the universe that you're pushing out. You're attracting people, the right situations to you via your inner power. Now, in order to explain this in a deeper sense for people to understand, I need to go through like the human body and the way that I view the human body in terms to make it show you that it's a more, shall I say, plastic universe, or the universe itself, the reality itself is like butter in your hands. You can actually manipulate it, and the only way that I can really, I mean, I'm guessing that you guys, you've all got up off your sofas and you've all come in here. So therefore, you're quite open-minded. You've seen the title of what I'm talking about tonight. You've all actually made the effort to come in. So you're already quite with it. You're already quite accepting that there's not, maybe, this isn't maybe all what it seems. And we've all grown up thinking there has to be more to life than this. There has to be more to life than what we see around us. Now, whilst I suffered from, at times, severe depression for 12 years, I went through quite a lot of trauma, which I think is a very big trigger to discovering this power within you. And a lot of that trauma was extreme. So it would take you to places that you know what I'm talking about, that you didn't necessarily want to go. It all started for me, say, for instance, when I watched my brother get ran over and killed when I was 9 years old. And that image of him being hit by a car and flying through the air, that was what I see now as being the start of my depression. So really, my depression went on many more years than that. But when I discovered it was depression, that was when I counted basically the years from. So this led on to total destruction within my family and the wider family. My brother committed suicide at 25 years old. Mum and dad split up. Lost that family home, everything else. So there's loads of stuff that went on. And what I'm trying to do is paint a picture of you for people who tend to go through traumatic experiences, really visit that, what we would call the dark side, the side that's not very nice to be in, and you just want to escape from it. There is almost a killer cure element to that experience, where you're in such a desperate situation that you're clawing for anything that makes you not feel that way anymore. Now, this can sometimes lead people off into fantasy land. So you can lose the plot, for want of a better saying. You could actually go insane. You could start, maybe acting really aggressive to those around you. There's lots of different ways that can manifest itself in the world. The trauma is in, and you have to get it out of you. You have to make peace with what's going on inside of you. Now, the way I choose, I'm a very practical person, which actually is not great for this creation process, because I like to see things in reality and accept that is it, and this is practical. If you do this, then this happens, and that's that. So I've always been a very practical person in my life, and I still am actually, to a degree, but there's certain things that happen within your life when you go through trauma that open up windows to things that give you powers. So, for instance, when you start to learn, if you want to really get over a bad traumatic experiences in your life, you start to learn thought processes, powerful thought processes that help you survive, because ultimately we do want to survive. We want to get through those suicide years, or those real low days when you can't get out of a chair. And your desire to do that, willpower alone is all that you've got at that point, because you know nothing. You don't really know how to get out of this. You're feeling the feelings. The doctors are trying to chuck drugs at you, and I knew that to be wrong. I knew that would never do me any good, so I never bothered. And I just thought, if I can't get over this with my own mind without taking my way into cuckoo land with tablets, then what can I do? And that was just my personal journey. A lot of people pick other ways, and to be honest with you, with what I went through, I don't blame them. I don't blame people for taking medication and trying to get a good night's sleep, because it is torture. But when you keep your mind clear and you start looking, why do I feel like? I kept asking why, just like a child. When we were children, we were very creative, and we always got over everything. Something would be a major problem one minute, and then the next minute we would be just playing and laughing. It was the way it was. And you almost get taken away from that. You almost get taken away from, you ask your parents why. Why is the world like this? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? And most parents will tell you a load of stuff that they've just been told but don't know to be true, and then tell you to be quiet because they're trying to concentrate on doing something. And that's the average way. I've been guilty of that a little bit sometimes myself, although I have gone in and tried to explain everything I can to the kids. Now, when you start asking yourself why is this like this, you can go on for years with the same thing. So you could get a problem, and 2 years later, you've still got the same issue, because you're trying to ask yourself over and over, what's the problem here? And you can't get to the answer. You just can't find it. Then all of a sudden one day, information just comes to you. It's the information that you get. I would say that all knowledge is in all humans. So we've all got the ability to learn and know everything. Anything we particularly choose. If we really want to focus on it and we want to do it, and that's what we desire, that will come to you. But there is bits of information when you keep thinking about things, and you think, where did that come from? And they're very powerful bits of information, and they set you free. And that feeling of freedom that you get, it keeps you edging on for more, and it starts opening up your mind. Now, when I talk about the creation of our realities, I truly do mean that we can create our realities. We can actually change what goes on around us and how things come to us in a bigger scale than we can even contemplate. And what led me to this point was when I was sat down thinking about the human body. And I just so happened I heard somewhere, I can't remember where it was, that the human body is made up of loads of cells, and we're 99.9% empty space. That's the scientists talking. So I thought to myself, if we're 99.9% empty space, why can I see me? And then obviously that leads you on into the fact that, our eyes are so big, and the particles are just like a TV screen. It's so close together that it actually looks as a big screen, or it looks as an actual human walking around. But then when you break that down, you realize that all we are is just a bunch of cells all oscillating. We're in 99.9% empty space and all communicating with each other in order to, through the nervous system, through the gut bacteria, through the brain, through the heart, which got its own neuro pathways. And that's what's creating our movements and our body. So then I thought, as above, so below. The universe is 99.9% empty space, and there's these loads of little whack-rang rocks that are doing their own things, flying around each other and this, that, and the next. So therefore, we're like a bunch of mini universes. So I've got quite, at this point, I thought, I've got quite a big responsibility here. I've got billions of, it takes a billion atoms to form across the edge of a piece of paper, the narrowest part. It takes a billion atoms just to go across there. I thought, well, that's a big responsibility to look after all this, And it starts your mind thinking about everything around you. So you know that everything else is made of atoms, and it's all ultimately just energy. That's all we're looking at is we're energy beings. The wall is energy, wood is energy, and it's all just atoms oscillating at different frequencies. That's what the universe comes down to. Now, we've all got, even though you realize at that point that we're all one, and everybody is obviously feeding from the same planet. We eat the same sort of food. We drink the same water, and we all live in the depending on the same things. So therefore, that makes us all one as humans, and the planet all one, and everything else around us. We need all that to survive. And when you start looking around at stuff, hard goods and things like this, you realize that this is the same energy that we're sharing. So everything has that energy, and we can interact with that if we choose. But we would have to tune into it. Now, that started me thinking, well, if we're tuning into realities, I started looking at the heart, and I realized that our planet is pretty much protected by electromagnetic frequency. That's what it is. And you realize that your heart, when you do more reading into it and everything else from a scientific angle, you realize that your heart is actually electromagnetic giver and receiver. And it operates in a field that is infinite. So even though you affect the immediate area around you, very, very strong, the pulse itself just goes out into wherever. So there was a scientist who, a doctor actually, he was Dr. Masaru Emoto. He proved that human beings did not end at their skin. And the way he did it was he proved that I could alter the structure of that water in that glass from where I'm stood now, just with my thoughts and intentions. So I could intend love or hate. Love or fear is actually the true opposites, but they feed you love and hate. So I could put love or fear into that glass of water, and I would actually alter the structure of that water with my body without physically touching it. So anybody can do that. Now, once he'd proved that, and I'd read that, and it opened my mind into new thought processes, you realize that if you can affect water in a glass, and you can feed that whatever you like, and it actually makes it good or bad, you can also affect everybody around you. You can affect your own body, because your own body is 70% water. So it's not just that water that I wouldn't be able to affect. It would be able to affect, it would be my own actual body. So I could feed my own body love or hate, or love or fear, and that would actually have an effect on my cellular structure. Then you look at people around you, everybody else is water. Everything has a water content, and certainly everything's energy. So if I can pass out these electromagnetic frequencies with the heart, and I can put, and the mind working together, and I can put intentions into everything around me, then surely I can have an element of tune in that I can manipulate or control or guide things around me, including objects and people. Now, when you start thinking deeper like that and you start really going into things, you understand that, you know, you look at the world in a completely different way. And when you come to that conclusion and prove it to yourself through investigating, through many different means, reading books from from scientists, discovering material from people who've studied this for their whole life, and you start looking at very influential figures like Einstein, you start realizing that actually Einstein's words were everything is energy. And once he started viewing the world like that, it all opened up to him. Now, what Einstein spoke about in his dying days, he wrote a letter to his daughter. And in the letter to his daughter, he told his daughter, thank you very much for discovering the most powerful energy of all, which is love. So love, we say we feel it in the heart because that's what pounds, that's what actually creates. That is basically the brain part of it that feels the love. So if you can, what Einstein basically said was that every other energy there is no comparison to love. And his own daughter taught him that. And then that's the letter he wrote to her. And he said, make sure you get, because he wrote a lot of information on it, so make sure you get this out to the wider public when you feel people are ready for this sort of information. Because remember, he was speaking in a day when all this was just jargon. People wouldn't believe what he had to say. You know, they'd say, oh, that's rubbish. You know, he had to really sort of keep proving and proving. And even now, so people are starting to say, oh, he was right on this and he was right on that. Not he was right on everything, but he certainly had an open enough mind to look down those avenues and be creative. You know, science will have you believe that there's just, you know, this, what we can prove is all that exists, and you can't really talk about anything else because you don't know it to be true. So therefore, if you're a scientist, you're sort of limited to what's already been proven. It takes people with an open mind, like Einstein had, and many others in history, to actually get people looking in a different way. And then it's up to science to catch up in a way to what's actually being created by people, you know. And we're at a stage now where I think a lot of people, I mean, I was chatting before this talk now, and there's certainly less resistance to a lot of this sort of information out there now than there was a couple of years ago. You know, when I started speaking like this, I had to go very careful with the sentences that I said, the structure of the words. I had to stop when I seen people glazing over or going, that's a bit weird, you know, and now you're finally feeling like that, you know, humanity seems to be making some sort of turn, which in part the internet's responsible for, although it also has its devil side. But in speaking broadly, people seem to be a lot more open to the sort of this sort of information. Now, when you're looking at your body and you look at the way that your body operates and everything else operates around you, and you realize that you actually have a say in the way people feel, you start to see that all we actually are is people who do energy transfer. We need energy to survive. We are energy, that's all we are. So, therefore, where do we get our energy from? How does it, you know, obviously we eat, and obviously we drink a bit and everything else, but there's a certain element that comes off of the environment around us. But one of the main ways of collecting energy is through love. So if you act, let's say I walk past a stranger and I'm walking along the street and I give them a genuine, heartfelt smile. So it's a proper eye-open, you know, sort of smile. It's not just a smirk, you know, going past someone in work, you know, on the way to work. This is a proper smile. And then they smile back. You feel really good, you've got a bounce in your step. They obviously feel really good, they have no choice of smiling. And you both go off and something's happened there. What's happened there? And this is the way you look into energy transfer. So what you actually realize has happened is that you've both connected on an electromagnetic wave, and you've both fed each other energy. So not one's taken off the other or anything like that. You've both fed it to each other and both become more powerful through expressing that love within. You know, the love for everybody around you and everything. Now, when you look into that, there's many different ways of collecting energy. So sometimes it will be because for more horrible people who are really pushed into fear-based mindsets, they may beat their wife or intimidate people around them. Let's say you run a business and part of your business is you want your most energy physically out of all your workers, but also there's an element of power you feel from dragging them down. You know, you always pick on the weakest one, you know, the one who's, you know, not going to fight back too much. You haven't done this, it's supposed to be out by now, this piece of work, blah, 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 and that's it, you're going to get the sack if you carry on. And you walk away from that, and then there's been an energy exchange. You see that person completely just go and shut down and just don't want to carry on. I hate this job, da, 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 da. And the boss goes away feeling almighty and powerful. So what that boss has actually done is taken the energy from that employee and boosted himself to go away feeling good. Now, that employee had a choice. I know that we get bought into this reality, and there is an element of everybody buys into the power of the energy of money, and that is just basically an energy exchange, a physical energy exchange, and sometimes it's not even that, it's just a load of people taking it. So once you understand that, you know that you're almost entrapped in a way into be treated like, because nobody actually wants to be treated like that. We would all just walk away from that person if we could. Now, but the one thing that you've got as your power within you is to not accept what they've just dished out to you. So if you were to turn around and say, I'll tell you what, stick your job up your ass, for want of a better phrase, then, and you know, you don't have any rule over me whatsoever. I say what goes on in my life, so ta-da, you know, and you walk out the door. What you've actually done then is you've rejected him taking your energy, you've now kept it. So he goes away feeling frustrated, or another person gone, how dare he speak to me like that? You've gone away thinking, oh, well, I'm free and I'm, you know, so there's been a bit of an energy exchange there, the other way. Albeit you've got no job now and you've got to try and pay your mortgage or whatever, but that's also, you know, there is an element of choices in that as well. Although we all have to interact in this world and we all have to obviously spend money, it seems to be the easiest way to gain, you know, rather than going out digging, ploughing up fields and growing vegetables and trying to do that, you know, we're almost into a society where we do need money, and that does get us this sort of abuse sometimes. Now, when you understand that everybody wants a piece of your energy, and ultimately the best form of energy exchange that you could do with anybody around you is to mutually show love and compassion and care towards each other, you understand that actually the only way to actually go around the world and be good is to be nice to everybody. You can't, there are people out there who wish to be horrible to you. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter what situation you're in, they will still be nasty to you. Now, like the boss in employment, where you're stuck in this job, when you interact with people who want to be horrible to you in real life, you have the power to reject what they're saying to you, what they're trying to do to you, because all they're trying to do is steal your energy. Unfortunately, with people who suffer mainly from illnesses and depression and everything else, are mainly the empathic ones who decide that they're going to take the weight of all the world's problems on their shoulders. They're going to worry about everybody and everything. And if anybody comes up to them, this is me, you know, if anybody comes up to them and says, you know, I don't like you very much. If I had a stranger come up to me and say that, there was a time when I would be very distraught by that, and it would take me a couple of years of figuring out, you know, it keep popping into my head, why didn't that person like me? You know, and that's, they've done an energy exchange, and they keep getting that energy exchange. It does not die when they walk away. It's the same as an abusive relationship. That energy is stored there somewhere. Let's say that you manage to get away from a husband or wife who's abusing you, beating you up, whatever, and you feel that intimidation. If you keep feeling that intimidation, there's still knowing that our bodies don't end at our skin, and that we think about that person and we feel intimidated. What are we doing there? They're the other end, not realizing we've done that, but they're starting to feel good. They suddenly, you know, they feel this energy come over them and they feel right. and they don't know where that's come from, but obviously there's a bit of a, you've tuned into them and give them a bit of your energy because you've known them. You've known them on a personal level. You've imagined what they were doing to you in the past, and you've managed to tune into that again and pass that across. Now, so the only real thing you can do is not be a victim. The only way that you can get over this and actually keep what you have left in you for yourself is to reject that. But you can't reject it in a hateful way. You can't say, I don't like that person, I hate them, and I this, that, and the next, because all you're doing is tuning into, like we said, the fear. If they don't accept that of themselves, because this is the big barrier that we have with this energy exchange, if you do not accept something that someone's trying to do to you, if you do not accept it of yourself, if they're trying to abuse you or accuse you of anything, that gets thrown straight back at them. And you see them go crazy. An example of that will be when you don't react to somebody who's completely trying to wind you up, and then they turn to bad language because they start getting really fear-based. So they start swearing and they start shouting and everything else. And it still doesn't affect you in any way. It hasn't actually, you can stand there and go, it doesn't, we boss this kiddie on, I'm going this way. What you find is they go absolutely loopy because everything that they're throwing at you energetically, you don't accept of yourself. So what do? And you will not buy into it and start looking around at them and saying, yes, I fear you, or yes, I'm going to be angry back. Do you see what I mean? So what you've done is you've passed that back, and they go crazy because they can't get that reaction out of you, and that's a living life force. They need that. People tune into these things. And it tends to be that nasty people in the world and good people, your bodies become, on a cellular level, you support what you are. So you are what you eat, you also are what you think, and you are what you feel. So if your energy is always being gained from going online and watching horrific movies of people or real life events of people being abused or tortured or animals and things like that, that actually affects you on a really deep level, and that brings those cells to life in your body. And you almost get a craving because your majority of your body over time will get used to that frequency, that energy exchange, and you'll go looking for that sort of thing because that's what you feed off of. Do you see where I'm going here? So you're and it's the same with love. Now, I'm up here tonight. You could say, well, what's my? I'm talking, so I'm talking my own personal life. I'm giving up personal details and things that go on in my head. You could say, well, what's my agenda? Well, what's going on? What's going on with me? How am I exchanging energy? What am I doing? So I would say to you that every talk I've ever given across the country, I have never charged a penny for. And that includes any money for vehicle expenses or staying in hotels or anything like that. I've never, ever accepted not one penny from anybody. Now, so what do I gain from this? What's happening here? I'm coming out and I'm talking to everybody in these talks, and I'm basically giving you powerful information. I'm not asking you to follow me in any way whatsoever. Only a sick world has leaders and followers. That's for sure. Only a sick world gets everybody looking outside for something else to blame or someone else to blame. They did it over there, this person did it, and actually it's all within. We all have the power to be in charge of our own lives, albeit we are co-creators, and we need to sort of try and work together. Working together is not going and picking one bloke and then blaming them for all the ills of the world, and then 4 years later pick another man and blame them for all the ills of the world. Nothing ever gets sorted. It also isn't run into some sort of religious figure and putting all your energy into that, because that could be taken and used. That person can do what they want to do. If that person then that you've spent all these years a pastor, you've gone to a church and you keep praying and doing all this sort of stuff, and I'm not against anybody having their own world and their own lives. I completely, that's none of my business. That's their business. But if you see people doing this sort of thing and all of a sudden they find out that the pastor they've been following is abused the kids in the choir, including one of their children, all those years of putting their energy into that person is now they've already fed all that power. I feel powerful, all these people looking at me and doing this and doing that, and they've create, almost the people who are at fault for looking outside of themselves for a figure outside to actually put their energy into and their power into. And every time you put your personal power into someone in the outside world, you're leaving yourself set up to be destroyed. Because everything that you need, and this is what I'm going to go into in a minute, everything that you need exists within you. Every power you tune into, everything you do exists within you. And you have the power to do and be whatever you want to be, because there's only this moment that exists. So I always say to people, especially people who suffer from cancer and other sort of talks that I go to, I always say to people that the past doesn't exist. That's just imagination. That's all that is. And the way you can prove that to yourself is that two people would have the same, they would be at the same event, they would be with the same people, but they would both have completely different stories over the years of what happened. Yet only one thing happened, but two people got different stories. And there might be a third person comes in who's got it on tape and plays it, and then both of them were wrong. None of that actually happened. It wasn't the people they said it was. So it's just imagination. That's all the past is. The future, that's all in your imagination. So no fear should ever exist of the past, and no fear should ever exist of the projected future. The only fear that you should have is if something happens in your immediate world. When you do this and you start closing things down, you start to gain your power back, because you're not putting, oh, if I vote for this person, they're going to bring in this, and then all of a sudden my life will be better again, and my mortgage payments will go down, and then you find they go up, and everything goes wrong, and everything else has gone up as well, and your wages have gone down. You know, you're always passing your power off in that way into the outside world. All you can really do is shut everything down to this moment and try and build up the power within you in order to use it in the ways that I'm going to tell you in a minute. Now, when you're thinking about the energy exchange, and I suppose everybody's with me on, you know, you can start seeing the way that you need to structure your mind in terms of it's the way people want your parts of your energy and the good and the bad and what exactly happens during that energy exchange. So if you get that and you really think about that and you look around the world around you, you'll suddenly start seeing who's actually your friends and who aren't. Do they call you up when they want an absolutely mental laugh? Do they laugh at the fact that you've hurt yourself and nearly died and da-da-da-da, you know, you fell over because you're drunk and ended up in hospital, and they're laughing their heads off. They've had a great time, and then they don't call you up till the next time they want to go out. So you see that's a basic version, but it's a sort of thing that happens in daily lives for a lot of people. You start seeing everybody around you in a different way. What you see is that there's only a few genuine people in your actual life. The people who you feel really good about. So you've got the people who walk into a room and they bring a cloud over it and they just bring everything down. And then you've got the other people who walk into a room and they absolutely brighten up and you feel great because you know they've got lots of charisma and they just make the place feel amazing. And these are the sorts of people that you have to search out and spend your time around. And when someone else tries to take your energy in any way by giving you abuse of any form, physical or mental, then you need to start viewing them as actually they don't need to be in my reality, but not hating them for that and not fearing them for that, but just to pass them off a nice thought. They've got lots of issues of their own. That's nothing to do with me. Their problem with me is nothing to do with me. That's their problem. They need to get over that. They need to deal with it. Now I need to go out in the outside world and stay away from these people because they're no good for me. Because I know what they're doing. They're trying to make me tune into a bad feeling, which is going to drag me down and take what I have away. Do you see how this, is everybody with me on the way that I'm trying to explain? I'm trying to get to the point where I'm showing you that you have a power within that pushes without. And I think I've sort of shown you that now, that your bodies don't end at your skin. You pass out electromagnetic waves. And those waves that you pass out actually determine the way that people act around you. So it could be because every time you see them, you speak to them and you're always having a laugh. So as soon as they see you again, because of the past history, when they see you again, they're like, oh, hello, and they give you a big hug, and then there's this great sort of thing going on and everything's good. That's one form of it, but there's also another form where you actually drag people towards you who you need in your life to fulfill certain tasks and certain things, and they do it willingly. The only thing they got to fight, the only thing that is your savior in what you do in this world is your willpower in the end. If what you're creating through your imagination, and what I'll show you in a minute, how to actually create your reality, your physical reality is a symptom. Just like a cancer in a body is basically a tumor, and science will come along and deal with the symptom, not the cause. They just deal with the symptom. They'll chop it off, it'll spill loads of other cancer cells out. Your body's trying to protect you, it's collecting up all these lovely billions of cancer cells, and it's collecting them all up in a nice big bag to tell you you've got something wrong, we're trying to deal with it. Your immune system's piling it in there and isolating it from the rest of your body. Today they come along and they'll chop that out and say, that's it, come back in a month's time, we'll see, oh no, it's not grown or anything like that, you're free of cancer, right? But what caused that? What actually caused those cancer cells to start flowing and being built, or your immune system not to deal with them? Because every one of us here have cancer cells flowing around our body. We're full of it. We're full of it. But why does it move on? Why does it start overpowering our bodies? And I would say that every illness and every disease is fear-based. And I would say that if you've had a life of illness, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person necessarily. It just means that you absorb the pain and the illness of everybody around you. You're an empathic person who feels so-and-so is, injured his leg and he's going to lose his foot, and so-and-so is doing this. And you feel that within you. You actually create the feelings within you and you combine with them. And then you start to get ill. Your immune system gets suppressed. It's trying to fight off all the cells that you're creating and feeding through your thoughts, your bad thoughts, your negative thoughts. And this is why the power of the mind has so much to do with illnesses and diseases. You have the ability, on a personal level, and I'm not just talking rubbish here, on a personal level, I have had lots of injuries, being a builder for 25 years now, and a hard-working builder, very ambitious. I come out with lots of injuries. I have bad knee, a bad elbow, bad shoulder, all these things going on, bad back, it's almost there on the back. But I realized that there's certain things you tune into in this world when you start to calm down and not work so hard on yourself, but also there's certain thought processes that actually heal. You can make your mind and your heart working together, concentrate on an area of your body, and you can feel that part of your body, and you can feel the pulse in it. And the pulse in it, and you can send intentions, just like I can send intentions to that glass of water, and you can heal that elbow or whatever part of you it may be, even a scar on your hand or whatever you've done. You can actually look at that and you can heal it with your mind. This is how powerful this stuff is. And basically, when you're getting these illnesses, you're absorbing the pain of lots of people around you, or even the pain and trauma in your own personal life. Now, your ways to get over things like this and start to realize that is to go within and only look within. Don't go in, just go and have a titanium elbow or whatever they put in there, or a plastic elbow put in because this one's hurting and I'll have my veins shortened and this, that, and the next. That would be a last resort. That would be when there's so much damage done there that it no longer operates. It can't do what it does. That's it. So then you would have to go and have something done about it. Now, what I'm saying is that you have the power within you to, through your imagination, so you're imagining your elbow or whatever part of your body, to heal that part of the body and make it go away. This, I wish I would have brought the information on it, but this has been proven via how powerful thoughts and intentions are. Tumors can be shrunk. Tumors have been shrunk in live time on scanning equipment, and it shows the tumor disappearing as the thoughts and intentions of a group of well-trained doctors have stood there and just said words and put intentions to that person, and they've made the tumor shrink and go.
And they've had that done with prayer as well. People have proved that they've done experiments with people who are prayed for versus people who aren't have a better.
Yes. As long as there is a dodgy element to that, and the right people got to be.
That's sort of sending good wishes to somebody.
Yes, it does actually work. And
what we're talking about is the Chinese hospital, and they've got no medicine there at all, and they did shrink the tumour, didn't they?
Yes, live time. Yeah, they put like an ultrasound scan, like a baby scan, on the tumour, and they had a lady laid down on the bed, and there was four doctors who stood there, and basically what they did was they stood there and sent intentions already gone. That's what they were saying in Chinese. They were saying already gone, already done, already healed, and that's what they knew that to be true, and that become reality within that woman's body as you watched it. So this is the sort of stuff. Now we're getting into what I'm trying to say. Yes, real magic, what I'm trying to talk about, because there's a lot of people that would say that's a miracle, God intended you to heal and what I say is that you are your own miniature God. We're all co-creators in this world, and we all have the power to do these sorts of things to ourselves and to other people. I've proved this to myself many times. There's a couple of personal stories. I can't go into all of them because some are still being created, but there's a couple of personal stories that are big and small. I started small with this imagination way of living. So to go into this, let's get, now we've established that, the knowing, the power of the mind can heal other people around you. It can affect other people around you and yourself. When your imagination, the picturing power of your mind, is a gateway to creating the feelings in the heart that actually attract or create reality. So an example of that would be if I had something I wanted to achieve, or something that I wanted to, a way I wanted to feel in the future, I wanted to feel happy, healthy, or anything else, like I was saying, the injuries that you have over you, your only way to do that, looking at the world as a symptom, so this is a symptom, and willpower is your only savior. Once you've created the cause is in your mind, and the cause is in everybody else's minds, and we're all co-creators, and the power is within us. Once we've created that, and now we're coming down to a point where all we have left is this actual physical reality to act in, because something's coming to us as bad, then you realize that your only option then is willpower, and it's how strong your willpower is against the person who's trying to create against you, or even against yourself. Because remember that you have to accept things for them to become part of you. If you don't accept the abuses someone giving you, guess what? It's not real to you. You don't accept that. It's not your business. It's none of your business. And then that doesn't become part of your reality. And this is the way you deal with it, and then you pass those issues off to other people. Now, this is stuff that I've proven to myself time and time again. And that is, when you've got the human imagination, and you've got that picturing power, when you think about it, everything that exists in your reality is what you see. So this is a 5-sense reality. What you see is what you see, and that's that. When you go to your imagination, you open up a bigger world, because now your imagination is endless. You could actually, with the right information, you could imagine what you wanted. That there's everything available, all sorts of scenarios. Imagine your dreams, for instance. That's just imagination. So when you go to sleep at night, you wake up and you say, I had this dream, and I was changing from this animal to that animal. I was running through the forest and up trees, defied gravity. I've done this, I've done that. That's how powerful your imagination is. It's open to everything. All things are possible, right? So when you start looking at things like that, you realize that the only, if you know the way that your heart tunes into a depression or an intimidating feeling, and how you can think your way out of that by tuning your heart into something different, by rejecting the intimidation or the fear that other person's giving into you, via knowledge. A lot of the time is personal knowledge and ways of getting over things. Sometimes it can just be because you just don't want to accept that. There's some very powerful ways of rejecting what others feel and think about you and throwing it back at them. And what you find is that when you go into your imagination, that's the gateway to find the frequency that the heart, because everything is energy frequency basically, find the frequency that a heart needs to create in order to push that out as your reality. And once you do that, you affect the world around you. So you'll find that funny things happen. So if you were creating something in particular, I'm not going to go into any names because the person I'm speaking about is actually like he's been on TV quite a few series and seasons of treasure diving, things like that. So I can't give over his name, but I can say a story that I find very, very powerful, and it really opened my mind up because I've done small things and then you go on to bigger things. Now, I was depressed, and I started learning about all this sort of stuff. And I had this, what I can only describe as like an awakening. So you just sit there one day, and you just, this information you start thinking about, and it frees your mind. And like I say, you've been sat there landlocked for years, and you just don't know what to do. And all of a sudden it starts flowing, and you open up, you get certain snippets of information, and it completely opens your mind. And I'm sat there, and I'm really down, and it's winter, and it's rain, 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 rain. Every single day. I don't know if you remember the winter, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just raining constantly. It didn't stop, and I thought it was never. I thought that was it, but you know, we were just all going to drown or something. And I'd look out the window every day, cursing and cussing, you know, doing all the usual stuff, you know. Bloody rain, it rains every day. Doing all these affirmations to myself, you know, and it did rain every day, and everything was bad, and everything was doomy, gloomy. I had no money, you know, and I'm going through all this in my mind, my self-talk. What am I doing? I'm creating, I'm tapping into that, and it's coming at me, it's bombarding me. Then I started watching this program on TV, and it was called Treasure Divers. And something changed in me in that program, because it tuned me into, there's a couple of guys, and they've done about 6 or 7 series of treasure diving. Basically, they're in the Florida Keys, and all around the Bahamas and the Caribbean, and they went treasure diving and found, you know, one of them responsible for recovering £5 million worth of treasure. And you start looking at that, and all of a sudden I started feeling good. I thought there's still people out there who just get on a scuba gear, fill a tank up with air, go out, dive, and then they find gold, and then they go and live and, you know, spend it on whatever they got to spend it on, and end up with nothing at the end of it. But they, you know, or some do, some don't. I'm looking at these people and the way they go out, and they do ultrasound, the electromagnetic pulses that get sent into the ground that picks up metal, and then they find the cannons for the ships, and the, you know, and this is taking me away in my imagination from my reality. So I'm switching off as a defense mechanism, what I was talking about earlier on, which is actually wanting to detach yourself from reality naturally, because you just can't take anymore. So you're going into cuckoo land now, you just want to get away, anything to escape what's actually happening in your 5 senses. That's a natural thing. But it needs to be guided, but it's a natural thing. And the reason why it's a natural thing is because it's your only way out. If you think about it from the imagination being the creative power of your mind, and the fact that you can tune in and create reality, you start realizing that you have to detach yourself from the 5 senses, because you cannot create something unless you feel it. You cannot feel it if you're living in the 5 senses, because the 5 senses are telling you it's raining outside, it's terrible weather, you know, I've got no money, it's all doomy gloomy, and the trees are swaying in the wind, and I can't survive. And I'm actually, you know, so the only way out of this mindset and the trauma that I've been through is to suddenly just go away in my imagination and imagine myself mixing with these treasure divers and talking about, you know, gold, and, you know, finding out some information, maybe actually going over and doing some treasure diving with them and everything else. And so I've gone away into cloud cuckoo land, you know, as a natural reaction to what I'm doing. I've gone away into this little world, and I thought nothing of it. But I lived that every day, because that was my only escape. So every time I got home from my job, I never give up working. Never ever, no matter how much depression I had, there was probably a half a day when I could not physically move because my heart was pounding out my chest. And, you know, I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but that was about it. So I go in every day and you were, when I come home straight, that was on the TV over and over again, the episodes, imagination switched on, me imagining myself diving off the boat, going down to the bottom of the ocean, finding gold, mixing and chatting with them and everything else, thinking no more of it again. Next day you're going into that. When I'm going to sleep at night, I'm watching treasure films like, you know, a great one which was actually based on Bristol because of our pirate history. A great one is the very first Robert Newton's Treasure Island. And that was you know, quite a good film that was made about the hole in the wall pub, basically being the Spyglass Inn and all this sort of stuff. So you can actually see how the book was written and how it was created and why we were chosen, because we were the actual main shipping port where we set sail over across the Atlantic to the Caribbean and everything else. So I'm going through it, so I watch that at night and then I'm dreaming about being a pirate and all of a sudden I find myself dressing up as Jack Sparrow. And you know, an urge inside of me, and then I started doing it for charity. Then I realized that there's this whole community of people who dress up in pirate outfits, all crazy as hell. And they're going on to all the dockyards around England, all around Cornwall and Devon, dressing up as pirates, getting drunk on rum and falling over and passing out and everything. I thought, this is great. You know, we're all going away on holiday, we're at the coastline, now we're all drinking and we're all falling over and passing out and, you know, all chatting, people I'd never met before in my life. You've got all the waves coming, the seagulls, you wake up and the seagulls go, oh, you know, you're in this imagination world that you were in, all of a sudden you're dressed as a pirate, you're doing this, the ships are swaying about, you know, and all the bells are going, and it's just, that was strange, you know, that you sort of get into that, but you think, oh yeah, in your reality, you think to yourself, what I've done is I've gone away into cuckoo land and now I'm trying to live a fantasy. That's what you think. Then you start realizing that I put the intentions out there so much, the power of intention and the desire to do this sort of thing started me looking at doing a scuba diving course, because I thought, I can't find any treasure if I can't go and hire scuba equipment and go down in the Caribbean Sea. So the only way I could do that is save like hell, and I was working like mad all through the summer, and I managed to save up enough money, and you know, it's sort of coming in bits and bobs, and I had enough money, and lucky enough I had a supportive wife and kids, and they said, go do it, you deserve to, you know, you work hard all the time, just go do it. So I went and I passed my scuba diving course. So then you think, well, that was just willpower from the mind and everything else. Well, the next thing you know, one of the treasure divers come over to give he's basically on a stall trying to sell, because he owned a dive shop in the Florida Keys. And he basically come over to England to try and sell scuba diving holidays. So I thought, well, I didn't know he was over, but I happened to see the post and everything else, because I happened to befriend them on Facebook, find them straight away and befriend them on Facebook. Oh, I didn't, he's up there, I'll go up there and have a little chat with him. Had a little chat and said, if you ever come over to England, come on over and you know, we'll have a little drink together and I'll take you for a tour. You can't call, because he used to call himself a pirate because he's got the master captainship and everything else. You can you know, navigate any ship in the world. And I said, you can't call yourself a true pirate until you've been to Bristol, because that's where it all comes from. That's where the oohs and ahs and everything else comes from. Oh yeah, whatever, you know. And then the next thing you know, he says to his wife, this is about 6 months later, he said, let's go over and see Kai. Just out of the blue. This is a guy who owns a dive shop. He lives in the Florida Keys. He goes diving every day. He's got his own scuba diving business, everything else. Suddenly he wants to come over and spend a week with me. So he contacts me and everything else, and I'm thinking, now this is getting weird now. Because my desire, my intentions and everything else led to these events. It seemed to be that something within my mind sparked his mind, and he said, let's go over and see Kai. For some reason, you know. And you start looking at things like this. The next thing you know, we're drinking a bottle of rum in my outbuilding, in my house. So there's this bloke I was watching on TV who got me out of all this. You know, and suddenly he's sitting in my outbuilding, we're drinking rum and we're having fun together. And his wife's there going, oh my God, I haven't seen him this drunk in years, you know, and this, that, and the next. And we're all, you know, my kids are having a few rums as well. And it was absolutely fantastic. We took them all around Bristol and Bath, and, you know, the funny thing happened with that was that I almost felt a sort of guilt. I felt like I'd manipulated. Do you get what I mean? Being an empathic person, I thought, this is a bit bigger than this. And I don't feel perhaps that, I knew he'd done what he wanted to do and he had a fantastic time. He said, oh, he made friends for life. You must come over. This is the weirdest thing. You must come over, stay with us. We can stay, we got our own house. But actually, we own part of the street in the Florida Keys. We bought the neighbors' houses so that we didn't have to have any neighbors we didn't like. And you can come over and maybe stay down in our basement bit in our house or something like that. And we can go out diving together. You know, this is, it starts getting real weird. And I started thinking really, you know, I thought I'm imagining things that are going on here. And I'm creating that within my mind, from the power of my mind. And this is now coming back at me and passing itself off as my reality. As a result of that, I never took it any further. I never ever, I could if I wanted to, even now. He's lovely, lovely people. And they're so welcoming. And I could call up and say, you know, but I almost feel an element of, I've almost avoided him in a way because I feel like I've been a bit of a manipulator. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that was new to you as a first
it was
experience.
And even though he would probably tell me, I'd done exactly what I wanted to do, Kai. We had a great time. I almost felt like an element of guilt, should we say, that I actually...
You don't think you deserve it?
In a way, yes.
You're wrong. You do bloody deserve it. Stick it.
Yeah, and you know, it's very funny how these things come about, and you start to think differently. Then one day, somebody shared a video with me. So I'm doing all this sort of stuff, and you're realizing that, hang on a minute, there's a bit more to this universe than what you think there is. There's this, you know, I've gone away into cloud cuckoo land. There's a natural reaction to not wanting to live in this world. I've switched off the 5 senses. All reason has gone out the window. Because now I'm living in my imagination to try and escape reality. And then it's become my reality. And then all of a sudden one day, a friend of mine shared a video with me. It was only about 20 minutes long. It was a YouTube clip, actually. And it was from a guy called Neville Goddard, and he talks about the power of the imagination. And then that was it. Everything clicked into place. And he was very, you know, you're talking about a multimillionaire, managed to do everything he wanted to do with his life, speaking exactly my language. So he's saying it exactly what I'm thinking. Oh my God, what's going on here? He's just told it straight out, and nobody's listening.
What was his name, Kai?
Neville Goddard.
Goddard.
Yeah, and basically, remember that he died in 1972, so. The world was highly religious still at that point. I mean, really, you know, Christianity was at an all-time high. So he was fighting against the odds, and he never ever won that battle, actually, because people are still living in this reality and just don't get... It's almost like if he was alive now, he would have a massive impact. And he had to come from the angle of, because his parents were absolute devout Christians, he had to come from a Christian mindset and decipher the Bible, because he suddenly started realizing that there was things in there that made sense, not thinking about the outside world and a Jesus and a God outside of you, but suddenly he turned it completely around about talking about the inside world and the power of the human being. So he said, it's no good looking for anything outside of yourself. Everything that you see in your reality is created via your imagination, and you will prove this to yourself if you start observing all your self-talk in your head. If you're having an argument with somebody in your mind, or you're thinking something's going to happen, I'm going to run up the back of someone in my car. You don't realize you're thinking it because you're driving along in a, you know, and then a week later you run up the back and you think, oh God, I thought that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. You know, and you create these things within your mind. You don't realize it until you start observing every single part of your imagination. Whenever you can, when you're doodling, you might be cutting veg, or you might be, you know, changing the oil on your car. All that time, your imagination is working overtime in your subconscious to create realities that are not here. Basically, you're just going away into cuckoo land, and that's your solving power of your mind. It has very, very powerful points within it. When you're in you know, like meditation. I can't meditate. I know there's some people here who can, but I personally can't. I can't sit there and go, right now I've got to spend, you know, half an hour just sitting there thinking of nothing, because I sit there and I think, oh, I could be cutting the grass now, and the car needs vacuuming out, is a right mess, and I've got to get my tools ready for work tomorrow. And then it's just, you know, I can't switch that part of the mind off. So what I tend to do is I wait until there's a moment within my life that I think, I feel calm. Sometimes it's after food. So you might eat a meal, and then, you know, when you feel a bit sleepy, a bit drowsy, that's the best time to go into this state of mind. And the most amazing things about this state of mind is the power that you put into your imagination when you're in a drowsy state. And then you fall asleep for 10 minutes for the night, so you're going to bed at night, and just before you go to sleep, it has an effect on your dreaming throughout that night, and it has an effect on your reality. So when you keep going to bed at night, so say you go to bed whatever time it is and you're relaxed, just when you're in that drowsy sort of state of mind, when you're basically in a meditation sort of state, if you create your reality as if it's something that you want, the end result of something you want. So like, say for me, it would be diving down off the back of a boat with the scuba diving gear on and picking up a piece of eight. My own piece of eight I can wear around my neck for the rest of my life. I don't care if I don't find anything else. I found a piece of eight, and I'm from Bristol, and I can go, "Arr!" and actually pick it out and say, I found that, that's my treasure. You know, if it's something like that and you're creating that over and over again, that will come at you, and it will be your reality, but you have to know it to be true within yourself, 100%. It don't matter what's going on around you. It don't matter that you live in the middle of land and you have no money and there's no ocean for miles and there's no treasure. You know, don't think about that. That's not your business. What all your business is to create in your imagination the end result. Whatever it is that you want to actually achieve in the end is what you do. And you do this make your imagination as pure and as vivid as you can, and keep creating the same thing. Don't worry about how it's going to come about. Don't worry about what comes to you. Like me, just see these things and think, that's strange, and act on it. Act on whatever comes towards you. It could be silly things. You can actually, when you get powerful, you can create in real time. But that can be dodgy, because you can start having bad thoughts and you think, oh my God, I thought that and I know it's going to be true, and da-da-da, and you keep thinking it over and shut up, don't do, and you're having an argument inside your own head with yourself, thinking that you're going to run in the back of a car in front of you because it's suddenly popped into your head when you're driving along. You think, I know how this works, stop thinking that, you're going to happen in a minute, da-da-da. And I had this one day. I was driving through Pensford. Actually, I was coming up to Pensford, which is not too far away from here in Bristol. And I turned around behind this car, and I just envisioned me swerving and skidding and missing this, running up the back of this car in front of me, and me going, ha ha, never got me, as if he'd done it on purpose. And I kept thinking it. And I'm behind this car, and I'm thinking, now you know the way this works. There's something here you're tapping into, whether it's that something, whether you're actually creating that, or it's a sense within you that tells you that something's not quite right because you don't end at your body and there's something not right out there that's going on. And I thought, lie back, don't go anywhere near. And every now and again, you know what you're like when you're driving, you start daydreaming, you go a bit closer and you think, that's not really, something's going to happen here in a minute, and I'm going to end up, you kept thinking it. And I went through Pensford, we're going up the hill, so you know what it's like up a hill when someone hits the brakes. The car stops on a dime and that's it. We're going up the hill and there's a lorry coming down, and this car in front of me slammed his brakes on, had no brake lights whatsoever. There wasn't a thing working. It's the first time he used it because he was just rallying down over the hill and this, that, and the next, and around the corners using his gear. Went up the hill, slammed on his brakes. I slammed on my brakes behind, knowing what was coming, because I thought, he's getting close, like that. And I went, ha ha, didn't get me. And I'm sat in the car and I'm just laughing to myself. I'm just like, this is amazing. I've just predicted that this car's got no brake light. I didn't know I had no brake lights. I've just turned behind it. It's come across the roundabout in front of me. I followed it. I thought that from the moment I was behind it. I knew. And then you start to see that there's these things going on in this world. They're not quite what you expect it to be. And the funniest thing of all is that when these things happen, and the weirdest reaction is no reaction, because you already know. Everybody around you falls to pieces. A crisis happens or something happens that's brilliant, and you're the only calm one going there, well, I already knew that, because you've created it. Everybody else is going, oh my God, I can't believe that. Look at this, look at that. And you're like, I know. Because you've already done it. You've already known it to be coming, because you've already imagined it and it's become part of your reality. And that's the strangest thing. I've had all sorts of really weird things happen. There's people out there who take this to, there are guidance things in reality that take things the wrong way. So when you know the way that this works and you can explain it the way that I've explained it to you, you see the people that what talk false. They'll share half-truths. So half of what they say is taking you down this reality created by imagination, and then the other half is like, that's not right. You're telling lies. You're making that up to fill the gaps that you have not come to realize yet. And I know you have, because I know how it works. And you can pick the fakes out from the real people, and there isn't very many people who are fully real. The one thing that I've never, and I got to say this on camera because I'm hoping that it'll reach a wider audience, and I'll be able to get some explanation for what goes on. What I realized, and what I'd like you guys to look out for when you get into that calm state of mind at night, is there's purple lights. So you're getting into that dream state, and you're almost nodding off, but you're not. And you're imagining things, and start looking at the inside of your eyelids in a way. It's a bit more up towards the third eye. I don't know if there's many different vision fields that I open up, but there's a shadow world, what I call shadow world, where you look at the inside of your mind. You shut your eye, and what you see here, it feels like it's in your eyes, but it's not. It's more so on your frontal cortex here. What you see within that is in the shadow form. But it's definite, it's there, but it's in the shadows. That has actually come to my reality, full blown, exactly as I see it. So that I can confirm that as being a vision field that becomes your reality. The one that I can't confirm, but I'm basically giving my perception of what's going on in my mind. There's another vision field that happens where you follow the purple lights. So they look like, can you remember the contrast on old TV, and you used to turn it off and it used to go down to the center and it was pixelated and then it would disappear? That is exactly what you get when you look at these purple lights and purple orbs, and they swirl like that and they go away. This is in your eye again. They swirl and they go away. They swirl and they come towards. Sometimes they'll just go past straight. Sometimes they'll come towards straight. But as soon as you observe them and actually look at them and send an intention to them with your mind, stop. They stop, they come back up to a certain distance away from you, what you feel is quite close, but a certain distance away from you, and they turn pure purple in the middle, and they open up, and it opens up into, and this is just a little spy hole, so it's like looking for a spyglass off of a pirate ship. I love going back to pirates all the time. So you're looking through the spy, and you're looking around it within a reality, and nothing there is what you experience in your reality, like what you've actually seen in your reality. It's something from the future, the past, whatever it may be, I don't know. But it's very real, and that as soon as you start getting excited, you can actually speak about it. So if you had someone next to you, you can sit there and you can go, I see da 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 da, and this is happening, that's happening. I see you picking up a glass, you're walking across a thing, this is happening. And you can speak to them and you can keep that vision field open. But as soon as you start seeing things that excite you and start waking you up, bang, it closes straight back down, disappears, and you've got to keep concentrating again. Not concentrating, like relaxing, and you get that vision field back up. Now there's another one, and the most amazing one of all, is where you get this reality, it just opens up, and it's full width. So it's not a little spyglass, it's not a shadow world, this is nothing like that. This is an actual reality, so it's as if I'm stood here now looking out at you lot, except for this would be like your analog fuzzy first TV version, right? Because it's all fuzzy and it's all not very clear. The vision field that you see when you open up within your mind's eye, another reality, is crystal clear. It's like the 4K version of our modern TVs, where it's absolute, it's better than reality itself. You've actually got a bet. It's almost like your eyes are worn out, but your eye up here, it is not worn out. It sees everything in crystal, absolute defined edges, and that you can go around and manipulate with your mind. So it's almost like you go into a dream state, but the things that you tend to see within that are almost like, what I describe it as, is you're turning you're operating your subconscious mind. So in other words, what is around you is feeding information to you, and you've opened your mind up to the subconscious mind in your imagination, almost like a dream state, but you have a power to change it in this reality. So you're not just dreaming where you're a victim, oh my God, there's wolves chasing me through a forest and I'm going to be killed, and then suddenly you come to the end of the cliff and there's nowhere to go. This isn't like that. This is something where you're thinking it. And as you're thinking it's happening, you can stop everything that's going on around you. It hurts a bit, but you can stop everything that goes on around you, and you can change everything to what you want to change it to. And that seems to be the guide for reality. Even though you don't see that exact thing happen, you certainly see everything, not like any of that's come true exact as I've seen it in my eye, in my mind's eye. It's still me almost having a power. I would describe it as your imagination. You go into it and then you fall asleep, and it goes on and does what it's got to do, and you wake up in the morning and things come to you in reality. I would describe this one as you actually being total control of your imagination. So you're not just trying to imagine a little bit in your picture mind's eye, you're actually in there. You're actually in there walking around doing things that you want to do and creating it in that way. And even though it's taken me 2.5 years, and I still sometimes can't open up this vision field. There's a lot of things that go on with that. Even though it's like that, you don't need that to create your reality. It's almost like that would be a vision world in parts like the shadow world, what I call the shadow world. That would be a vision field that give you a little bit more power, maybe, if you can control it and know how to use it. But this information isn't given to us. There's people out there who obviously know this information. If I can do it, I truly feel that anybody on the planet can do it, but I feel that we're all in a situation where we're schooled and indoctrinated into working hard, and that's how you do it, and really into this lifestyle. Science won't let us bounce outside of anything and think outside the box. So we end up trapped in this reality, but I'm sure there must be people out there who do this on a daily basis as part of their life. So they've been brought up like it. And I would imagine that those people are quite powerful, because you think about it, if you're, so you don't, in order to do all this sort of stuff, you have to disassociate yourself from reality, disassociate yourself from reason, reject everybody around you that are telling you that it's different reality than what you're imagining in your head and what you want to create. That sounds just like our politicians and leaders, doesn't it? They're totally detached. They just decide, no, what we're doing is this, and that's it. Their mind's done, and they're almost, when you start looking at things from a bigger picture like this, you almost see that there's an element of power within people in powerful positions, that they reject everybody else. They have the power to almost cheat, because this is just a mathematical system. It doesn't favor somebody. It doesn't go, let's shine the light on him, and because if that was the case, good people would get exactly what they wanted. But unfortunately, it's like an opposite world. So the people who can completely detach themselves and the ones who just don't give a damn about anybody else, it seems like they're the most powerful people. We need to do part of that. We obviously need to care about the people who care about us, but we don't want to become these absolute tyrants that people in positions of power have become. Because they get energy fed to them, and all the stuff, everybody, you see it all the time. Once you understand how energy works, you end up continuously seeing David Cameron or somebody's face coming down your news feed, or Donald Trump, and it is almost on a daily basis, and you think, God, you're almost accepting your enslavement, I don't know, how do you put it? You're almost creating your power figure. So that person's more powerful than me. I fear him, so I'm going to share all the posts from him and write everything I can about him, about what he's going to do next. What do you think you're doing when you're doing your imagination? Why do you think that these people on Facebook and everything else, and these social media sites, it seems to be that the people who share the most hate, animal stuff and all that sort of stuff, we've all been there, we've all concerned about it, and we're all dealing with it. I personally, with the new knowledge, I could not ever share anything that would create anybody with any power over me. So you won't find on my newsfeed for years, you won't find anything where I'm accepting any form of authority over me. So there's nothing there that says that there's a politician who's going to bring in this law and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. It's not part of my reality. I don't care what laws they want to bring in. That doesn't apply to me. That applies to them and anybody else who buys into it. You know, and that's taking back your power. Obviously, there's an element of we are co-creators, so we're all. If there's a majority that says this cult leader is the absolute, you know, best, and we're all going to fight for him, you've got a lot of hard work on yourself to desire your way out of that and to actually create your way out of that. So it's you're in this tricky thing, but once you start looking at the world like this and your imagination, you almost start to, the posts that you share and things that you do on social media and the people you interact with and the way you talk becomes completely different, because the self-talk, the talk that you give yourself within your head, you don't realize it at the time, but it's actually taking away your power on a continuous basis. There's almost loads of barriers set up in front of you where you reach, so I tell you this information and everything else, and then you got onto the self-talk and you're singing songs in your head that are destroying your power. Because you think about the words that you're singing within your mind. You know, one that was last year, say, for instance, that pops into my head. I got bills, I gotta pay, I gotta work every day. And you're singing, and it's like a real catchy tune, and you sing it continuously over and over in your head. It's taking away, it's basically creating your reality. You're telling there's something in there. It doesn't care who you are, and if you're a good person or no. If you know how to work that mathematical system, you can't, you know, it gives you that power to do that because you've got that knowledge. And there's people out there who've got that knowledge and they don't accept nothing else. They don't accept, you know, anybody's bad views of them or anything. You can see exactly how it works. It starts explaining everything that goes on around you. And you start looking at the world around you and you see that, yes, that person's in power and they're completely detached from reality. They just do what they want to do. They know what they're going to do. And you also see the people who go into power who start to try and, if somebody gets into power, have you ever noticed, and they're really good people and they really do want to take everybody's points of view into consideration and everything else, you usually find that if they are actually genuinely empathic people, they don't last very long. Because it just gets, they're giving their power away all the time. The only way to actually make it over a load of people is to become that strong figure, you know, one-minded, and this is this and that's that, and I know it to be true, and no one else is going to take away my power. And that's the only way you get into these power structures. You see it all the time. And when it comes to your self-talk, always take note of who you're arguing with in your head. We all do it. I catch myself doing it because there's always something going on in your imagination. Whilst you're even talking in reality, there's still something else. Let's say you're talking to somebody and you're going, oh yeah, is that right? Da, 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 da. And in your mind, you're thinking something else, aren't you? You're thinking, God, I need to go off and do the shopping now, and da, 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 da. I'm going to be late. And you look at your watch where you're chatting to, oh, so-and-so passed, and you're still interacting with them, you're still listening to them. But you've got to take note of all those things that you're telling yourself, because whether it be the lyrics of a song, whether it be the feelings that you feel, if they are negative and they are poisonous or they are enslaving, you need to lose them. The best thing about all this, and it's like a double-edged sword in a way, the best thing about the imagination and everything else, if you find yourself creating something that's not, that is not what you want, all you have to do is give it an element of doubt. And once you doubt something, it destroys it. So but it also works the other way. If you're creating something and you go out and you tell someone else in your reality that, you know, oh, guess what I'm doing? I'm using the power of my imagination. I'm creating this and creating that. And they go to you, oh, that's a load of rubbish. That never happened because so-and-so proved the other day that this happens and that happens. What they've done then is just completely destroyed what you're creating. They've taken you away from that because you've shared it in the outside world and they've completely detuned you. They've give you self-doubt in what you're creating. The more that you prove yourself, and this is what you've got to do, is go out into the world and prove it to yourself now, and you'll start seeing funny things happening, and it will give you a heartbeat at first. You think, my God, it is actually true. Because that's all I want you to do, is go out and prove it to yourself. I'm not looking, like I said, no leaders and no followers in the world would be great. That suits me fine. Inspirational people, yeah. If there's people who inspire us, people who give us good energy, that's what we need in this world. We don't need leaders and followers. We don't need people who are going to screw us over financially, all this sort of stuff. So when you're creating your world, make sure you keep everything to yourself, unless you definitely know that that person desires exactly the same for you, and they will think in that way. If you can actually do that, you can tell that person. If you've got any element of doubt whatsoever, then do not tell them what you're creating. It's almost like, you know, when they say to a child, do a wish, but don't tell anybody around you what you've wished for. You can see now that there's an element of where that come from, and the fact that it's been almost altered, where you just got to think something that you want and it will come true. You can see there's an element of truth to that, but you can also see that there's also looking out. They want you to pray to someone else outside of yourself, like some God or Jesus somewhere out there is going to save you. They don't get you to look within, and everything is within. You know, your whole reality. And what you have to do is just keep, every time you catch yourself having an argument with someone, you will know that they will act in a bad way against you. And there's more, there's so much stuff I wanted to cover, but obviously we're on limited time. I don't know how we're doing for time. No, not too good. Yeah. So basically, there's a lot more things that come into this as well, with the imagination and the power of the mind. Where was I going? We got the self-doubt will take away what you've created. So you just need to create self-doubt for whatever you've created, and it will make it disappear. So you're constantly keeping an eye on what you've created, and making sure that conforms with whatever you want to do. What happens is, if you do it, and you've got to a point where you're having an argument with someone in your life, and you know through the creation process something's going to happen, then you need to suddenly send them good wishes. And I mean from a powerful point of view. This will give you will feel the energy within you completely settle back down and come back to normal. So if you've got a boss who's abusing you all the time, he always abused me, I'm going to tell him my mind today, I'm going to do this, going to do that. Ignore that, tune into something else, and turn around and think to yourself, he must have a lot of stress in that job, you know. It may not be necessarily for you, but you must have a lot of stress in that job, and I'm earning a bit of a wage, and I wish him well. I don't want to cause him any harm. It looks like he's really destroying himself with having to go around speaking to people like this all the time. Bless him, he don't know the way the world works, and almost be settled in your mind knowing that what he's actually doing as well is he's going around stealing bits and bobs, but every time he tries to take it from you, it's rebounding back to him, because you're not accepting it of yourself. And you've got to talk good about these people. Now, I'll try and wrap it up as soon as I can. But basically, when you're talking about this, I was going on to, we've got it come into my mind just now, very important. We actually got some flyers, haven't we, at the back that I've made up. Yeah, you can hand them out if you like. I've made up some information on an A4 sheet, and it's basically a procedure. So I've written imagination at the top. It's a procedure for you to keep, because it's very hard to keep all this information within, and it's a sort of guidelines that you have to follow in order to create what you want to create in your reality. So it's like a step-by-step. I don't know if there's anything on there I haven't really covered, but I decided to write exactly that is what I do, and that is what I can say works. I can't say if anybody else has done anything else. I don't know. I don't know if that works or no. That they may know, but it's not up to me to share anything that I don't find true in my reality. So that's what I do, and that works. All what I've written down there works. And that's what I was going to get onto, and it's very, very important, this, because it will start making you look at the world around you differently. Let's say that you desired to be happy and healthy. That's my personal one. So all I desire for me and my family, so you don't talk from it as if it's going to happen. So you don't say, I want. Want is a no-go word in this. Want is no good. Maybe, could I have? All those sorts of things are bowing down to something or some power outside of you. If you say, I have, so remember what you're doing, you're creating it as if it's already happened. So if you say, I've already created this, and this is already the reality, And if I wanted to create health and happiness, I wouldn't say, I want to be happy, I want to be healthy, because I'm implying that I haven't got it. So what I do is I go, I am happy, I am healthy. And you'll be surprised if you start saying it in your mind and you keep saying it, even though you may feel completely drained and everything else, you'll find that you start getting higher and higher. You start feeling better and better. And all of a sudden, what you're doing is somehow you're talking to your inner body, and it's passing out that affirmation into the outside world, and you're starting to feel better. You start getting it come back. But don't be surprised if you wish for happiness and then you go in the next day and your boss sacks you. Because what's just happened there? You could say, oh, I wish for happiness, this don't bloody work. My boss has sacked me. What the hell am I going to do now? You could look at it from that point of view, or you could turn around and say, was that job actually the right job for me? And would that have made me happy in the long run? Is that part of my happiness? Is it what was making me happy, or what was going to make me happy, or whatever? And you realize that what's happened is everything around you is starting to realign with what you're imagining.
Be careful
So
what you wish for.
be careful what you wish for. So you can say, I want to be happy, I want to be healthy. You go out, you lose your job, you go home, your wife says she wants to leave you. I don't know. It could be anything, you know. But at first sight, if you totally own your imagination, and you know that you're living in your imagination, you're keeping it in check all the time, you're creating self-doubt for everything that you start to think that's bad, and you're wishing it well, and you're passing it on its way, and you're completely creating it all the time, and you're going to bed every night thinking real vivid imagination, touching whatever it is that you want to create, you're touching it, you're shaking hands with someone that you want to do a deal with, whatever you're doing, you're completely confirming that. If you know that anything that seems bad on first appearance actually ends up being good. And this is why people get really bad things happen to them, like they lose their family home that they've been paying for half their life, and they've still got these massive mortgage payments. Suddenly they lose it, everything seems like the world's falling apart, and then in a couple of years' time they say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. If that wouldn't have happened, I'd still be paying it now, and I reckon I'd be dead and in a grave. I had illnesses and now I feel great. So have they created that within their mind? Have they gone away into fantasy land without realizing it and imagining themselves happy? I wish I never had this around my neck, you know, and then start imagining in a world where everything's all right and they feel happy. And then all of a sudden they lose their home. It seems like a tragedy, but you can't view it as a tragedy when you own your imagination. But you have, like Caroline said, you have to be very careful what you wish for. And if you always tend, and I've written down on that sheet, if you always keep passing out affirmations and wishes that are just self-gratification, so you're just trying to control other people, you're just trying to get wealth, you'll never really find happiness in that. I think the true wealth is health, you know, health and happiness, health being first, because it's no good being happy if you're going to be in a box tomorrow. You've got to be healthy, then happy.
And also using words in your little affirmations like I want, I need, is always coming from a place of lack.
Yes.
So it's always
Yeah. You got it. Yeah, exactly that. Every term you use, anything that says change, you know, all these words, want, change, hope, they're all for people who do not have any power. They do not want to use their power within, I should say, because none of those words mean anything at all. Change doesn't mean anything. Everything changes all the time. Actually, by the end of the week, we're almost completely different bodies. And this is when you start thinking about the cellular structures and the way that the body works, you realize that what you can do if you got addicted to a drug substance or an alcohol or cigarettes or something like that, you realize that what you've actually done is tuned a majority of your body cells into that and fed them, and now they want more. Because you're looking at your body not as, I am Kai Bowman with this mind, I am, you know, this person, and there's so many cells that I've created because I've been taking these drugs for so long, they all need it. But if I starve them, if I go back to willpower, if we go back to willpower and we starve those cells of what they want, so we're saying, no, I am not going to do that, all of a sudden you find that everything gets easier. Isn't that always the way? And that happens with any addiction. Everything's an addiction, really. Whether it be pornographic stuff on the internet or whether it be, abuse of some kind that you watch or do, or even some people get addicted to being abused. You know, all these things, your body craves that. You actually become that. You know, so this is where you've got to be careful what you think of, because as many people have said to us in the past, you actually, if you want to understand something, you have to actually become it and be part of it. And what you're doing is actually, when you're doing all these things, you're becoming part of it. You're changing the structure of your body. And that's, you know, if it's what you want, that's great, but you can see where it's all going with the, you know, with the power of that. So to finally, you know, sort of cover everything up, you've got your sheets there with a sort of guideline to what you want to actually, how you want to go about this. Do small stuff, because the small stuff will come into your reality. Don't try and mix it up. Don't make it too complicated, because all you have to do is just imagine something in the end as the last minute. It could be like just a 30-second imagination clip, and that's it. That's all you need to create. Try and put the people in it you love and everything else to make sure that everybody's well and healthy and all there. Do you see what I mean? And then you leave that. If you start thinking, I wonder how that's going to come to me. I wonder if so-and-so is going to turn up and give me this and that money's, or I'm going to win money on the lottery, or if you start doing all this, remember what you're saying in your mind. You keep putting, you're going from putting one intention out of one little clip that keeps playing over and over in your mind. You've gone from that to creating multiple things on a massive scale. For the universe to actually interact with that and deliver that, there's got to be all these things going on at the same time. It takes longer. So the longer you take, you know, don't worry. Don't panic about it. Just put it out there. You've got nothing to lose. You put it out there. You just make sure you keep control of your imagination. When things start coming back, your confidence grows, especially the first thing. Because, you know, I know that I actually spoke to my family and predicted things that I could never know. Never know in a million years. And I predicted things happening and in my own personal life. And they've happened, and it's actually made my family members be in shock, to the point where my wife actually felt like she was going to be sick, physically sick, because it was such a, like, you just said that. How did you know that was going to happen there at this moment in this reality? How did you all know that? I just knew it. I seen it in the shadow world. I prompted 3 weeks later that is going to become reality, and there it is. And I've done it. I've predicted. And then I turn around, because obviously your family sometimes are your biggest skeptics, and you turn around and say, now do you believe me? And they're all there like, it's amazing experiences, you know, these things. Like I say, you know, you can't say things unless you know them. You could tell other people, you could tell the whole world, but you would have to be some strong person to do that, because everybody will want to doubt you, and everybody will want to uncreate that. And any element of doubt you are in you, everybody will find it, not through necessarily verbal, but through the actual feelings, all coming back towards you. They will all pass those feelings to you and try and take away what you've just made and created, because they're doing it with their minds. So you just keep it all to yourself. There is an element of telepathy. I do telepathy. You intend for people to call you up, and they call up and they say, what is it you want? And things like that. You know, these are people who are quite awake themselves and you know, quite aware of that there's more to reality than you see. And you know, once you do these sort of things, you realize that you know, that you are all creation. You can't deny it. If you wrote down everything you imagined, if you kept jotting it down on a piece of paper day after day, you look back at that piece of paper in a couple of months' time, and your dreams, everything, you look back at that and you'll realize there is no such thing as coincidence. Coincidence in the future will be a word that will be made redundant, because they'll realize there's nothing like that. You actually create all that. This is just a symptom, and everything's created up here and pushed into the outside world. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know Dan's going to be screaming in a minute. And, you know, take that information away and let me know how you get on, because, you know, I am available through Facebook, and I do YouTube videos as well. I leave all my YouTube videos on as a sort of history. There's a start, so people can feel like they know me, if you know what I mean. It's no good coming in at the end and deleting all your old videos knowing that they were slightly wrong maybe, and not what you're talking about imagination, but when you're ranting and raving, or you're going, you know, there's certain things that you start off like, that you learn from and you move on from. But I like to leave it as a pattern of growth, because everybody sees that I come from nothing, from a depressive mess. right up to what I'm talking about now. And then when people prove it to themselves, they think, well, you know, if he can do that and he can be happy after what he's been through and this, that, and the next, and where is this information coming from? How is he coming to these conclusions? I go to sleep, I think of a question, and you wake up in the night with the answer. Who's done that? We've all done that. You know, you go to bed, you've got a problem, you think, especially being a builder, you know, how am I going to get over this? There's steel beams right in the way of this and that, and I can't. And then you go to bed thinking like that, and then you wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and it's just there. You didn't even think about it. It's like, that's the answer, you know, it's that. Science, another thing I want to cover as well, science will have you believe that when you do this sort of thing and you create wellness within your body, they call that placebo effect. Let's call it placebo. It's not real. It's not real. The fact, I don't care if their cancer is completely healed and this, that, and the next, and they've done it with their mind. That's not real. That's not science, because we can't prove it. So therefore, it doesn't exist. And these placebo effects get on our nerves because they interfere with our studies. And you know, that's how they see it. They completely dismiss what you're saying about.
They call it spontaneous remission.
Spontaneous remission.
And they never actually check what it, because I work in a hospital where people
Yeah.
get cancer treatments.
Yeah, yeah.
And what gets me is those people that happens to, they never examine what it was that those people did.
Yeah.
They're
not interested.
The ones that died, cut them up and go, oh yeah, that killed them. And they did. But
Yeah.
the ones that actually get this spontaneous remission, you don't see studies on how did they do that? What was it they did that's different from the people who died?
That's it, they're not interested because it doesn't make any money. It's to do with the power of the mind, and they don't really want you becoming powerful in the mind because there will be no leaders and no followers, exactly what I was saying. I want nothing more from you guys than for a couple of you to come back to me and say, you won't believe what happened to me today. I followed what you said and give it my best shot. And, you know, I give up on it almost, but I put the intention out there, and 2 months later, this come back and happened exactly how I planned it. And that is where you can see now why I do this, because that gives me such a great feeling inside when I save people's lives. A lot of people who are completely depressed because this is the way I got out of it. And what I realised and opened up in my world, when I open this up in other people's world, they can't thank you enough. And they keep trying to tell me that, thank you so much for what you've done. I said, I've done nothing. I keep telling people over and over again, that's giving away your power. I've done nothing. I provided a piece of information at the right time to you that give you something, a basis to work on. You took it. You decided to open up to it. You decided to try it. You decided to get over it. I didn't do any of that. All I did was give you a piece of information. That is it. And I keep telling people this all the time. And that makes me feel good because nobody can accuse me of being any cult leader or any religious figure or some sort of, you know, influential figure or whatever. I am just a person who wants to set everybody free. And the only way to set everybody free is to get everybody to look within and show them how to do it and how to create reality. That's all I want to do, you know. So I hope you enjoyed that.